My family and I, and well, myself, experienced something that not essentially, but entirely changed my life, for the better. Even though, with every bad, usually there comes good of it. And that's, fortunately what happened. So in 2009, I was pulled over by police on the South Shore. And they pulled me over. I found out years later, or not years later, sorry, the next year in 2010, that DeBellefeuille sounded like a Quebecer's name and not that of somebody that was Black or any other origin. Okay. So that statement alone changed my life and my family's life, like, tenfold. And I found that out in court because I had received, I was driving on the South Shore. All I drive is BMWs. Love the way they drive. It's been 17 years since I've been driving them. And they're all used, they were brand new. For some reason, an officer wanted to turn around and after he crossed me and follow us. And, I had already been pulled over about 3 times that week, jumped out of the car, really upset, and basically said, what's going on? Why are you stopping us? I'm in the car with my wife, my dog, my stepdaughter and her niece. My son wasn't born at the time. And what's going on? He basically said to me, he said, is this your car? Hey guy, is this your car? And, just, it was so disrespectful to just, utter the words and automatically assume that the car wouldn't belong to me. I'm not going to go joyriding with a dog in the car.
Asking if you were driving your kids to school because they remember that.
Well, that's a second case. So you'll whoever that is, you'll hear me get to the second case. So basically, and so I said, well, why, like, what do you mean is this my car? I'm not going to have my wife, my dog, my stepdaughter and niece in the car driving to go to the Dairy Queen just around the corner if I, decided to steal this car or whatever he was assuming in his head. I just did not, it didn't sit well with me. I said, and he kept on saying, is this your car? Show me your ID. And I said, no, I want to hear this from a supervisor because I don't believe that you have the right, to ask me ask me for my identification without providing me an absolute, and that's in bold, absolute reason as to why you're pulling me over. Asking if this is your car is not a viable or legal reason to demand somebody for identification. It has to be, you ran a light, you ran a stop, you did this, right? Breach of the highway safety code. So finally, after 15 minutes, the supervisor did come and explained to me that if that was him, I would have thrown your ass in jail because you didn't provide the ID when asked. So that kind of went back and forth. I showed my ID. Then he told me, he said, you're going to get the tickets in the mail. I said, okay. One for not showing the ID to the officer and the other for lapsed insurance. So the insurance was lapsed by 2 or 3 days and the envelope was on my, I have envelopes here, unopened envelopes on my desk, which I didn't switch out in my dash. So that was my fault. 3 months later, I was at work at Traffic Tech, and my wife, Tony, called me and she said, Joel, she goes, there's bailiffs here. I said, what? What do you mean bailiffs? And says, I think it has to do with your tickets. And so she basically, I said, well, open them. And sure enough, they had decided to, the city of Longueuil had decided to send the tickets via bailiff.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. One was, I think it was $525 or $523, and the other was, I don't know, $50 or $60 for the lapse insurance. So I paid the lapse insurance one because I was at fault. And the other, I was just like, you know what, like this is crazy. And again, going back, you know, $500 is $500, regardless, you know, whatever it is. So she's like, this is expensive. Like, you did show your ID. I was there. Like, we need to fight this. So I signed the back of the ticket, mailed it in or sent it in, whatever it is that you have to do. And 9 months later, I received it's a pink sheet with basically the notice to appear to go to court. And that was for June 1st, 2010. So something, as the date approached closer of June, something in me was telling me that this was solely because I'm very matter of fact, but at the same time, a very practical person and logical person. So I was like, you know, something is telling me here that race is involved here. Okay. But I'm not one to cry wolf. I'm not, you know, I'll hear you first before I'm gonna, you know, judge and stuff like that. And you don't want to throw out stuff like that because it could, you know, hurt somebody emotionally and, you know, career-wise as well, right? So, but I had that devil on my shoulder telling me I need to gather information. So I don't know, but what I did, I printed out I thought for some reason back then that printing out a picture of my mother and father, okay, basically show that they're white. I don't know why I did that, and that they were well known, you know, in Quebec for, you know, doing good things. That this might help me, and I don't know. I printed out some other documentation as well. But my adopted mother, Betty Chambers, she was a professor at Concordia University. She got a doctorate there and PhD in philosophy. My father is a consultant. He's Joel DeBellefeuille. He's, you know, done work for the National Film Board, SPVM, ironically, Pratt & Whitney, and so on. So I, for some reason, thought that information would help me go to court. So I went to court, and I was told by CRAR, which you may have heard, FONIEMI. CRAR is the Center for Research on Race Relations. They're an organization that helps people with their human rights and stuff. He had told me, make sure you ask for a copy of the police report. And I'm emphasizing this to anybody who's listening that gets pulled over the police and you want to fight a case, you have to get a copy of that police report, because they're mandated that once they give you a ticket, they jump back in their car and they go back to do their paperwork at their office. They have to write a report about that, and it's available to you. So I asked the prosecutor, actually, no, she asked me, she's like, Monsieur DeBellefeuille, veux-tu voir ce document-là? So I said, sure, yeah, no problem. I looked at it, the first, and there's actually a copy of the report on my Twitter page. There is they wrote in French, en circulant sur la rue Churchill, on a vu un BMW noir qui était conduit par un homme de race noire. Suite à l'enquête de la plaque, nous avons vu que le nom de Bellefeuille sonne comme un nom québécois, puis non pour un homme de race noire, ni pour une autre origine. So right there, I didn't even read, and it's what I said to you in English before. Yeah. I didn't even read the rest. I lost it, and you know, the officers.
That's
like 10 or 15. You know, it's
that's blatant. I mean, well, you don't get more blatant than that.
You don't. And the officers were sitting, you know, 8 seats away from me, and my blood was boiling beyond boiling. But of course, yeah, you know, you're in court, you got to keep it cool. Can't even chew gum, right, in court. So I had to keep my cool. What turned out to be supposed to a 15 or 20 minutes, you know, court case turned into a 2 hour and 45-minute court case, where the officer in question who wrote the report, you know, stood there. Yeah, I swear to tell the truth. Da, da, da. and went on and had the gall to tell the court that if in French, if I see, you know, an Asian person with the last name Laporte, I'm going to pull him over too. If I see a woman named Catherine that's, you know, being driven by a man, I'm going to pull them over too. And I didn't have a lawyer with me, and I wasn't very well versed on, you know, when you should talk or not to talk, but I was always wanting to talk because I just couldn't believe what I was hearing, right? 4 months later, I get the decision in the mail, which was, I was guilty, and I had to pay the $525 ticket on the grounds of the Highway Safety Code. I think it's 636 Act, where when requested to show your identification, you have to show your identification. And but yes, there was racial profiling in this case. However, there are courts that deal with that solely. So he was referring, the judge was referring to the Human Rights Tribunal.
So this court was like, they totally did you wrong. You still have to pay the fee and go deal with those guys.
Yeah. So we made a big stink about that with FRAR. It was all over the news. And we appealed that decision to the Superior Court of Appeal. And they granted us the opportunity to appeal that decision. So we were there, 3 judges, Superior Court at Notre Dame, and they heard, and it took them about another 2 to 3 months, and they came up with a decision that the judge in first instance had erred, E-R-R-E-D, on the decision, and that every judge that gets sworn in as a judge across Canada is legally mandated and obliged to hear and decide on anything that has to do with the charter. Okay, so any breach of your rights, whether it's the Quebec Charter or the Human Rights Charter, they have to hear it. They can't just pass the buck. And so he said, this needs to go to a different judge and cannot be heard by the same one. So I got the opportunity to have my case heard by another judge, and 4, 5, 6 months later, in a 66-page decision in, I think it was November, December 2012, I won that case, and those 2 officers were cited for racially profiling me. So now they have a permanent mark on their file that they racially profiled me, that it was an illegal interception. And all over the decision was the words racial profiling, in French, profilage racial. There was so many.
We just got a question. Was there anything for the judge, or did the judge just get away with it, the one who erred? And
No, what he got was obviously bad press, because his name was peppered everywhere, littered all over the media, and I don't know what happened to him, but the 2 officers, they received those fines, citation, and they received 5 days suspension without pay, and that was it. When I say we, it's CRAR and myself. Also, we're asking for $30,000 in damages. Okay, what we learned was that, and again, if anybody's listening, if you are whatever, if you're whatever color, visible minority or non, and you feel that your rights as a person are being violated in a stop, in an interception, you have to invoke whatever it is that you feel is going wrong with you. So in my instance, I felt that I was being racially profiled. I had to invoke that at the time of the interception. So the time that he turned on his sirens to follow me and stop me and said, hey guys, this is your car, I had to say, I feel that you're racially profiling me. Okay. Why? Because if I want to receive a monetary compensation, there has to be proof that the other side, so the police or the city, were aware that I was claiming that I was racially profiled. And like I told you about 10 minutes ago, I'm somebody that's very trusting, and I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm not going to cry wolf and start, people say the race card. I wasn't about that. I felt it, but I wasn't going to speak it at the time of the stop.
So quite literally, you're saying that unless you make a noise in a moment, you're just going to be completely disregarded down the line, which is
for monetary compensation. So
that's still a pretty big incentive that if something happens for you to say something.
Absolutely. So it's very important to, to speak up, at the time, during, after. And so because I only received the letter to go to court on June 1st, 2010, when the incident happened on July 9th, the year before, that's already almost 10 and a half months of time that has lapsed. So I was already, meaning before I filed my complaint with the Quebec Human Rights Commission, the time had already lapsed. So there was no way I would be able to be compensated at $30,000. I won from a personal standpoint and proving a point standpoint that I did nothing wrong and that the police profiled me. But from a monetary standpoint, I didn't receive a dime.
That's wild.
Yeah. So that's why it's very important that you have to say that. And I still, think about it sometimes that if you do that, you're almost, accusing before, again, you're accusing before knowing the actual facts. Maybe this wasn't the circumstances. Maybe you had a bad day or whatever, you got to give the guy the benefit of the doubt. But at the same time, you also can't steer away from who you are as an individual, right? You've got to, if you feel that you're being, trampled on and your rights are being violated or whatever it is, I strongly believe that you got to, kind of stand up and voice those concerns.